A good day to you all. I'm Fernando from S.D.D National College of Education. My topic is helping prospective teachers to adapt and adjust textbook materials for listening lessons. We normally observe lessons of teacher trainees during their third year. When observing these lessons, I found that less listening lessons are handled in Sri Lankan classroom. And maybe one reason for that is listening is a skill which is not evaluated in the GC O-level examination. And recently, Ministry of Education introduced to assess listening and speaking skills in the term test from grade 6 to 9. So in order to assess, teachers have to implement adequate number of lessons in the classroom. So I felt that my prospective teachers need kind of assistance to implement these adequate number of lessons in the classroom. In my literature review, I try to review what an action research is and what's the role of the actor in doing an action research and what his functions are. And another area of my literature review is observation rubrics. I went through many observation rubrics presented by different researchers in international arena, and I try to compare the aspects included in those observation rubrics and the aspects which we are implementing for our lesson observations in our observation schedule, which is used in National Colleges of Education. So when comparing, I found that most of the aspects are similar. So I decided to use the observation schedule used in the National Colleges of Education for my pre-observation. Another area I have to search was textbook analysis and content analysis. And when I was reviewing this area, I found a checklist presented by Alan Cunningsworth for listening skills. And it was directly related to my area of study, analyzing listening skills, and content of it also matched my purpose. So I selected that checklist. And another area of my literature review was the structure of a listening lesson, and I selected the structure presented by Jack Richards. And when I was preparing for the intervention, I thought it is better to use scaffoldings presented by the psychologist Vygotsky, and these scaffoldings are important for my sample. So I was able to lead my sample from their actual level to potential level during the zone of proximal development. Teacher trainees face many difficulties preparing lesson plans with this prevailing pupils textbook, because this textbook has activities which are not fully developed to a complete lesson plan, and less occurrence of listening activities in the textbook also a problem for them. So they need to take an extra effort to design listening lessons. So I thought of giving them a helping hand to overcome this situation. My teacher trainees are trying to adjust and adapt materials in the textbook, and they need skills and practice to do this. So they need the competence, professional competence when they practice this. And I hope I can provide that professional competence with this study, and that will ultimately contribute to their continuous professional development. My objectives of the studies are to analyze listening activities in the grade 7 pupils book, to make teacher trainees aware of planning listening lessons with appropriate stages and correct flow, to adapt and adjust materials and activities in the pupils book into lessons. The first objective, I have narrowed down my study with the first objective. Instead of analyzing all the textbooks of grade 6 to 9, I thought of analyzing only grade 7 pupils book, thinking of the time constraint and other limitations I had. My research is an action research, and my sample consisted of 6 prospective internship teachers of English course at Pastunrat National College of Education. And when planning the intervention, I thought of conducting pre-observation sessions in order to verify what are the aspects or areas that my teacher trainees need to develop related to this study. So second step was a discussion as the base of the pre-observation analysis. So during this discussion, I discussed stages of a listening lesson and aims of these stages, each of the stage and the activities which should be included in each stage. And then I analyzed the listening activities of the grade 7 pupils book with my sample. In that analysis, we were able to find out how many listening activities were there in each unit, and what type of listening activities are there, and were the authentic materials were used in this pupil's text. And next step was awareness session on sub-skills and competency levels. And from this step onwards, I had to conduct Zoom sessions and WhatsApp conference meetings. Due to the pandemic situation, schools were closed, so there was no way for me to meet my sample. So I used technology to conduct my latter part of the intervention. Next, we selected materials, especially speaking and reading materials, which can be converted into listening lessons. And then with these converted materials, we designed pre, while, and post listening activities. At last, my sample was able to prepare complete comprehensive lesson plans, which maintained the flow of the lesson. And during these intervention steps, I use scaffoldings to guide my students, as I mentioned in my literature review. My data collection tools were observation schedule, checklist, discussions, and reflection notes of my sample and my self-reflections. Most of my data was qualitative. I identified these 3 themes related to my data. During the observation, I found that teacher trainees had selected isolated activities which did not maintain the flow of the lesson. And in the pupils book, it's a positive trend in the book, because there were a variety of listening activities such as listening comprehension, gap filling, listen and label, listen and underline. But the problem was those activities were not compatible with the 3 competency levels prescribed in the grade 7 pupils text. And there were some ambiguous aspects during the intervention steps related to my sample. So I was able to clarify these ambiguities and how my sample overcome those ambiguities were depicted in their reflections. In results, I would like to discuss about the grade 7 book. I identified unequal distribution of activities related to 4 skills. There were no balance between the activities, and especially for listening, authentic materials like interviews, dialogues, news bulletin, weather reports were not used. Normally, the listening types we listen to in our day-to-day lives were not used in the textbook, so the students are not getting any real life experience. My participants were able to recognize the compatibility between listening sub-skills and competency levels, and they gained the ability to convert especially speaking and reading materials to listening activities which contain pre-while post-listening activities. And finally, they were able to prepare comprehensive lesson plans which were maintaining the flow of the lesson properly. These are some of the lesson plans and reflections of my sample. I would like to conclude saying that prospective teachers need the ability to adapt and adjust material according to the requirements of the 4 language skills that they are teaching. And the most important revelation that I gained through this study was I need to guide more adequately my internship teachers to handle listening lessons. I would like to recommend to equip prospective teachers to analyze the textbook materials and provide them enough experience to adapt and adjust material so that they would become more independent in their profession. This is my references, and I would like to wind up my presentations, and thank you all for listening to my presentation.